This is NWCN, Northwest Cable News. Northwest news and weather 24 hours a day. Now, Northwest News First Edition.
Well, after months of hearing the daunting news of the housing market slide, we are finally getting a bit of good news this morning, maybe a little bit more good news. Northwest Cable News' Lisa Van Sice joins us now with something for the home sellers to finally smile about, at least for certain areas like the Northwest, right?
Like the Northwest, exactly, Greg. Real estate experts are seeing a drop in inventory around Portland and Vancouver, Boise too, and that's a good thing because it means fewer houses are actually on the market. Now they're seeing that same trend in the greater Seattle metro area too. Houses and condos here at the Issaquah Highlands on the Issaquah Plateau score a pretty sweet view. But just a year ago, sales were sour.
Well, the Issaquah Highlands, again, a year ago, the sales fell off there pretty radically, but now have started to pick up again.
Ron Sparks is an expert in the real estate market, especially on Seattle's east side. The Issaquah Highlands is one neighborhood on the road to improvement, but he says it's hard to make a blanket statement on the state of the market, especially in Western Washington.
It's a mixed bag. This market is unique in so much that there's very few cookie-cutter markets and very few cookie-cutter neighborhoods.
Take Bellevue, for example. Up until a few weeks ago, it continued to see a rise in the number of homes on the market. But Sparks says the good news is he thinks the Northwest has seen the worst. With an overall dip in the inventory, it's a step in the right direction.
I think that over the next 6 months, that if sellers are serious about getting their home sold, and that means that they're pricing it at today's prices, not a price that they may have gotten 2 or 3 years ago. And if buyers think through the potential of the neighborhoods that they're buying in and the potential for real estate ownership, the market is going to continue to improve. And
in the end, he says, the Northwest is lucky. We missed most of the pain other parts of the country suffered. Now, one of those suffering markets is Stockton, California. They have a pretty high foreclosure rate. And we do have some more good news. The housing market here is still very strong for luxury homes, too. Greg?
All right, thanks, Lisa. Well, today's market can be very intimidating, especially for the first-time home buyer. But owning your home, still a huge financial asset. Joining me now is David Hatlin from Home Street Bank. And this is something a lot of people struggle with, especially depending on how the market's doing. What's the single best piece of advice you give to people who are looking to buy their first house?
Especially for a first-time home buyer, you really have to go see a lender first. A lot of people try to self-diagnose and they just end up with a big problem. And they don't know how much they can really afford. Sometimes they think it's a little bit less and they underbuy, or sometimes they think they can qualify for a much bigger house. And with the recent cutbacks in underwriting standards and program guidelines, they might not qualify for the house that they'd like to get or they couldn't afford it. So it's good to check out first with your lender.
Obviously, there are a lot of myths out there. What would you say is the biggest one that people tend to hear, the thing that may keep them away from buying?
The biggest myth is that they think there's no more money to lend, that you have to have 20% down. There's still a lot of products that have been around for 180 years. FHA, you could put 3% down, have average credit scores of 640 at best, and still get into a home.
Yeah, your credit score, they tightened up a lot. I mean, now is a great time to buy because the prices have gone down, but it is tougher to get the financing in certain cases, depending on what you're buying.
Absolutely. In a jumbo price range or the upper price ranges, if you don't have a 720 credit score, you're going to pay a higher fee for your mortgage or a higher rate. If you have a 700 credit score, which we used to think was pretty good,
yeah,
you're going to pay another half a point higher in fee or another eighth in rate, and it goes down to where you're paying almost another quarter point to half point in rate if your credit isn't very good. So there are changes.
And that doesn't seem like a lot unless you're talking several $100,000 for a house.
Another $10,000 in fee on a $400,000 mortgage is a lot of money.
What kinds of deals are people seeing out there right now with the housing market the way it is? If it's starting to rebound finally, we've seen a lot of crazy stuff for the past few months.
The market, especially in some of the outlying areas, it really is in pockets. The Queen Anne area has tended to be very stable. It's up 3%. It's not as much of a buyer's market. In some areas where there's a lot of new construction, it can still be a little bit of a buyer's market in terms of they're offering incentives to buy, lower prices, better upgrade packages. They're willing to pay your closing costs. So it really varies by where you want to look.
And if the market is starting to pick up for sellers, are you telling buyers, hey, this you really got to get in right now. This is the time to do it.
It's a great time to get in because you don't know especially where interest rates are going to go. We've been pretty flat in the low 6s for the past 3 or 4 months. If we get some inflation, the economy starts to rebound, you're going to see those rates go up a full point probably, and if they do, you're looking at losing $30,000 to $40,000 in purchasing power for the same payment.
Yikes. All right, David Hatlin with Home Street Bank. Appreciate everything.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Kim?